My friend and I recreated the world of Once Upon a Time in Animal Crossing, and I can't wait to show you around today. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to Storybrooke, an island completely inspired by and modeled after the TV show Once Upon a Time that my friend Cat Horizons and I built. Let's dive into the world of fairy tales together. First, let's take a look at the map. Our island is basically split up into 4 big parts. A foresty part that leads into the actual town part of Storybrooke, the Storybrooke Harbor, and last but not least, Neverland. And I would also like to show you the mood board that we created for this island to touch on the topic of Storybrooke's residents. First and foremost, of course, our main character is Emma Swan, wearing that iconic red jacket. Henry, our kid, is portrayed by cute little Broccolo, while our hubby Killian, aka Captain Hook, is none other than the legendary Lopez with his on-fleek eyeliner. I mean, come on, perfect fit, right? For our dad, or Prince Charming, or of course David, we chose Fang. I mean, if those poses don't give off the same energy, then I don't know. And our mom, aka Snow White, aka Mary Margaret, is portrayed by Aurora. For Regina, the evil queen, there was no other option but Olivia, to be honest, and her boyfriend Robin Hood is portrayed by Avery, mainly because of his outfit. The legendary Zelena, aka Wicked Witch of the West, had to be a green character, of course, and we ended up choosing Anacotti. Bonus points for Regina and Zelena being cat and mouse. Mr. Gold, aka Rumpelstiltskin, is our sleazy businessman Marlowe, while Fauna felt like the perfect choice for Belle. Another character that really left an impression on us was Peter Pan, who we chose Flip for. Again, that's giving same energy, right? And last but not least, we also wanted to include Granny's Diner on this island, so we decided to make a second character for her. If you'd like to visit alongside, I will put the dream address on the screen. When you wake up, you'll find a little reference bill to the 7 dwarfs to your right, and then make sure to hop into the pipe just south of your bed and make your way over to the big road. And now let's get into it. Once again, let me say welcome to Storybrooke. I will try my best to guide you across the island and give you as much insight into the creation and all of the references that we've included as well. We'll start right here with the iconic town line and the Welcome to Storybrooke sign, and Emma's yellow bug driving into Storybrooke, of course. On this island, we've used glowing moss to indicate whenever there's magic. So you'll notice it right here as we cross the town line, that magic basically starts showing up. And right here to the entrance, there's no glowing moss to be seen just yet. Also, kind of make sure to pay attention to this as the tour goes on and see whose villager front yards actually have this as well. This forest on the left and right of the road leading into Storybrooke is supposed to kind of be a mixture of the Storybrooke Forest as well as the Enchanted Forest. So what we did is we tried to include a couple of references. There's this horse carriage here to the right-hand side, and then you can also see that wanted sign. So in the show, there are these Snow White wanted posters all over the Enchanted Forest, and because our Snow White is portrayed by Aurora, a penguin, and we kind of thought this sign looked like a penguin, even though we think it's supposed to be Zucker, we decided to include this a few times across the forest. And then here, right behind it, you can also see Excalibur. Alright, let's make our way past this car and then over here to the right, which brings us to Avery's place, aka Robin Hood. So this is the camp of Robin Hood and the Merry Men, basically. We've got a couple of tents here in the back, and then towards the front here, there's this hangout area around a fire. And of course, because we're talking about Robin Hood after all, there's also a bunch of bows around because, you know, archery and stuff. We don't for sure know what Robin's house looks like we don't really have a reference for that, but it is supposed to kind of be a tavern, as you'll see in a second, and it's also just in the middle of the forest as part of a camp. We wanted it to be as woodsy and foresty as possible. Alright, and with that, let's go ahead and go inside. So this is supposed to look like the tavern or inn that Robin owns with Marion. So we've got a couple of bench setups, some barrels, of course, there's that big counter in the back left, and then the candle chandeliers as well as the deer decorations on the wall. And there's also a couple of bottles, some hearty food, everything pretty much needed for a tavern. And with that, let's continue exploring. We'll make our way back over here to the main street leading to Storybrooke, but before we go there quite yet, there's also another dirt road leading over to the left here, which brings us to this brick wall. You might know this brick wall as the place where a couple of curses start, so it might not be the best place to hang around, but you know, it is here. We wanted to include it. There's lots of glowing moss around, but before anything bad happens, we'll make our way back to the main road. We've got a couple of like fake buildings here that kind of note the start of the actual town part. And then over here to the right, you'll see the start of Granny's Diner. However, before we explore that, let's venture to the left side first. We actually decided to put our Able sisters here because there's this one scene with Emma and Killian where I think Emma tells Killian for the first time that she loves him, and you kind of see this like wedding dress shop in the back, so it must be exactly across from Granny's. So this just naturally needed to be our Able sisters. We also put a couple of outfits in front that I think Emma Swan would really appreciate, and it has partially also worn in the show. And then because we wanted to include another kind of interesting spot over here, we also included a little laundry area. This is basically just the kind of theme for like Able sisters, but it could also be a reference to that laundry scene in season 1 where Emma says that very popular quote of like, you gotta punch back and tell them, no, this is who I am. So yeah, that actually is inside of Granny's, but details, you know? All right, and then why don't we give this over to Granny so that she can give you an actual tour of Granny's Diner. And there we go, meet Granny. This is her right here. Let me show you around the diner now. So of course we got the patio part outside. There's a bunch of candles around. We got those string lights up. And also, of course, a couple of diner food items because it just felt fitting. And in the show, there's actually this big, I don't know, is it like a mural or like a poster of the Storybrook skyline with like this big like Storybrook across it in the background. Now, since we can't quite do that, we decided to at least put this kind of skyline pattern on those transportation stops. And then here we've got Granny's Diner itself. This is what it looks like in the show. And then this is what we made out of it in Animal Crossing. We, of course, got the diner sign right here. And there's a bit of a trash area to the front. Just a couple of things that made sense with the diner. And with that, let's go ahead and go inside. Now, Granny's in and of itself, I think is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it is a diner, you know, the color of the red unfortunately doesn't quite fit. It is much darker in the show, but this is, you know, this seems like a typical diner, so it felt kind of decent for us. Of course, there is the jukebox in the back, and we've also got the iconic dartboard where Emma asked Killian out on a date. If you can't tell, I am slightly obsessed with Captain Swan, so I apologize for all those references. And then of course, Granny serves like coffee and fries and other like diner stuff, some pie, and of course we got that big counter towards the back right there. This was, by the way, so much fun to build, and we also decided to block off all the rooms in here, left and right just with a wall, and then the back is kind of that like storage room where, you know, Ruby escaped from as a werewolf, so we better not venture in there. It's closed off with the curtain. That seems secure enough, right? Okay, let's head upstairs. And since Granny's is also a bed and breakfast and quite a popular location in season 1 especially, we also decided to include some rooms here. These are a couple of pictures that we found that we used as inspo, so we tried to make like the wallpaper and the flooring as accurate as possible and then also get the colors right. We used some different shades of wood and then different like prints, and of course both rooms kind of have a big bed and then just kind of some area to chill, and it is quite mismatched because that just felt like the right vibe for Granny's. All right, let's go back outside. Back on Main Street and back as Emma Swan, this big intersection is coming up, and if we already tilt the camera down, we can see the library with its iconic clock tower. Let's get back there in a bit though, and first let's explore this area to the left-hand side. So, from a couple of pictures, it seemed as though Gold's shop was somewhere across from Granny's and somewhere across from the library as well, so we decided to put it over here. And then because we wanted Belle, aka Fauna, to live close to him, we put them both kind of just in this staggered sort of position. Belle's house is modeled after the plant shop Game of Thorns that her dad owns. So here on the outside, we also gave her a bit of a plant shop to the right-hand side here, just a display of a couple of different things. And then we also gave her all of these red roses because, you know, Belle and red roses, right? And with that, let's go ahead and go inside as well. Now, we don't really know what Belle's place looks like in the show, apart from her castle, I guess, in the Enchanted Forest. So we kind of just decided to imagine what it could look like. And we ended up doing this mixture of like a library or just a place with a bunch of books and just a cozy space to have like a cup of tea and read a good book. Plus, we also still wanted to include that plant shop and just lots of like roses and red flowers because we still kind of felt like that was part of her story. So yeah, this is kind of just the interior that we ended up making for her. Next up, let's explore Gold's place. We will make our way back to the intersection and, as promised, head up to Gold's shop this time. This is what it looks like in the show. So we decided to also go for a blue house, and with the help of a website, I also created this custom design as the Mr. Gold shop sign. And then here on the outside, we included a bunch of wheat fields as well as a spinning wheel and some gold as a reference to Rumpelstiltskin spinning straw into gold. And of course, again, lots of glowing moss all around. Even though it feels almost a bit random, we still ended up really liking this. And with that, let's now also explore the inside of Gold's shop. So in the show, this shop is actually a place that we get to see very often, and it seems super important. So we were quite nervous, but also super excited to get started on this. We really wanted to make sure that we got this right. We had like a good wallpaper and flooring combination. We used all the space that we had, and we tried to like put as many references in as possible. We've got a lot of display cases all around. In the back, you know, Gold hides his Dark One dagger behind this like painting, so we also wanted to include that. We also put the curtain partition as though that's kind of where you get into the back area of his shop. And then we have this counter table in the back, of course, and so on and so forth. This really was a lot of fun to put together, and every single item in this is pretty much placed intentionally. All right, with that being said, let's go explore Storybrooke a bit more. At the end of the street, we put Nook's Cranny as just this like regular store type because it seemed as though there was some sort of building in the actual Storybrooke, like at the end of the road. It also then just happened to have this little parking lot to the side here because that felt quite accurate for a store. And then you'll see another kind of parking lot to the right-hand side, but we'll explore that at a later point in time. First, it is now time to show you the clock tower. This was definitely a challenge to build, but it needed to be included. Of course, Storybrooke's library, aka clock tower, you know, a place where a lot of stuff happens. We've got a couple of books on the outside already, and then we tried with a whole bunch of different things. Honestly, this was one of the first things we actually tried building. And then at some point we ended up with this structure, which is basically made out of storefronts, curtain partitions, I think simple panels and short simple panels, and this big gazebo, as well as the ranch table for that flat type of roof. It needed to be part of this island 100%, and while it was a challenge to build, we're actually quite happy with it, and we're happy that it's part of this island. All right, and then there is much more to see, so we'll go here to the right-hand side where you'll get a couple of options for where to go next. We're actually going to go down first. This lonely little road will bring us over to Zelena's place. So Zelena actually lives in this farmhouse in the TV show. So we used that opportunity and gave her a bunch of little farms because it's a very cute thing to build in Animal Crossing, and so it felt kind of fitting. And once again, you can see a lot of glowing moss around her house. And then you can also see this storm cellar door because this is where she kept gold. So there's also a gold nugget, you know? All right, and with that, let's also explore the inside of her house. The main room that we've seen for Zelena is like this old school kitchen with a big table in the middle. So that's of course what we tried to recreate. We've got the flower wallpaper going on, all the ranch furniture, and then we also did give her those green apples in the back and this kind of pear as kind of like a green apple. So it's kind of a comparison to Regina, and because that is a joke that she actually makes in the show at one point. And then we've got the fireplace over here on the side, and we also of course included the baby bed for Robin. And with that, let's go back to the island. We'll make our way back up this path and then actually go to the right-hand side, which will be Regina's house with the big fancy driveway. This is what it looks like in the show, and then this is what we made out of it. Of course, we also wanted to include all those apple trees because, you know, the red apples for the evil queen is just a match made in heaven, I guess. And then before we go inside, let's actually head down this path here on the right-hand side because this connects us to the museum, aka Regina's vault. Again, there's a bunch of glowing moss going on around it. There is a couple of questionable things going on as well that we're not going to discuss further. We put some graves because this is by a graveyard after all. And then we also included these music boxes because they kind of look like those boxes Regina kept the hearts in. All right, and with that, let's better make our way back to the main path. Or, of course, before we do that, go inside of Regina's place. Regina's interior is basically modeled after her office in the show. So there is a lot of black and white going on. We've got that big fireplace with the fancy sofa. There's, of course, her very important looking office setup. We've got another one of those heart boxes. And then of course, her mirror is also a very, very important aspect of this. And now time to explore some more of Storybrooke. Let's finally make our way back to the main road and then follow it up here, which is basically where we imagine everyone to live, kind of like this little suburban place. We'll start with the sheriff station over here to the left, which is where David, aka Fang, lives. We attached this tiny parking lot to the left because we also saw another reference picture for that one. And then the outside of the sheriff station appeared to be this kind of dark gray. And now let's take a look inside, shall we? Now this one obviously is modeled after the sheriff station in Storybrooke. We wanted to make sure to build up the office portion here in the front with the desk. We've got a bunch of documents lying around. We all know Storybrooke isn't really up to date, so a lot of stuff is still on paper and just kind of a mess everywhere. We also did make sure to include that chunky TV that they sometimes use to watch some evidence. And on the other side, we put this bench that you also sometimes see on the show. And then, of course, we have the actual jails in the back. Some not so comfy looking bunk beds, some snacks, a little bit of water, and of course, we also have the surveillance cameras there in the back. Probably not too much of a home, but you know, we needed to include the sheriff station. And with that, I would say let's go back outside. And then from the sheriff station, we'll make our way over here to Mary Margaret's house. Now, she lives in an apartment in a house that I don't think we actually know what it looks like on the outside. We do know, however, that there are some brick walls on the inside, so we wanted to give it this kind of like rustic look, but then also still give it some cutesy and princessy things, which is why we included all those flowers in the front yard as well as that wreath on the door. Let's also take a look at Mary Margaret's apartment. And here we have Mary Margaret's interior. In the show, her apartment has this rustic, shabby chic kind of feel, and we definitely wanted to bring that over to Animal Crossing as well. We had to use a bunch of the ranch furniture for her just because it felt perfect, and we used the combination of both the white and that kind of like older looking one. And of course, we gave her that kitchen on the side and this kind of dining table to the front, where we also included a high chair for a baby whose name we're not going to say because I'm still kind of pissed about that. Anyway, we also, of course, have that big comfy looking bed over there by the window. Another reference that we saw a picture of was this bike on the wall. We just changed the color to make it fit the aesthetic a bit more. And then to kind of pretend as though there's like the staircase leading up to another bed and to like another bedroom, we also included this dresser over here. All in all, we're really, really happy with how this one turned out, which means it's time to explore some more of Storybrooke. Coming up next is none other than our own house, of course, complete with the white picket fence and our yellow bug in front of the door. And we also included the shed in the backyard, kind of like in the show as well. And once again, we can see a bit of glowing moss all around our house. And now let me give you a tour of Emma Swan's house. And the main room serves as our living room. We've caught a couple of glimpses of this living room on the show. So we also included that fireplace up front with the sofa and the armchair. And then on the right hand side here, we also see this like table and chair setup. And then we put this antique bureau instead of like this big wardrobe that they've got in the show, just because it feels a little cuter. Some cute references in this living room also include, for one, the fact that we blocked the room to the right-hand side with some bookcases because everyone kind of believes Killian to be an avid reader, and Killian and Emma kind of live here together, so there's that. We, of course, also included that little pirate ship trinket to the left-hand side, and there is the telescope by the window so that Killian can watch the ocean. Apart from that, of course, we've got the pancakes, and there's also some popcorn with some melted milk duds mixed in. And then we also included this corner over here because we imagine Hope to have her own little stuff to play with. The dollhouse is suspiciously sparkly because, you know, she is also a product of true love. At least that's what everyone thinks, so she must also have some magic, right? And you might also kind of recognize that shell. It is one of Killian's trinkets, and we kind of just imagine that maybe Hope would have picked it up to play with it. And then over here to the other side, Emma just put up her boots, and we also got hats for both Killian and Emma. And with that, let's explore the kitchen next. In the show, the kitchen has this like huge over the corner counter space, and there's this like big table set up in the middle. So we tried to recreate that, and while we weren't able to get a couple of the colors right, we still think this is kind of close. So right here, we've got a couple of kitchen items. We also once again included a couple of references. We've got coffee for Emma, of course, and then as a toaster and this meal, you know, those have like fish references for Killian. There's another coffee machine. And then it also looks like Emma was just making some pancakes. Next up, let's look at the upstairs. Now, while we don't really know what this one looks like in the show, we tried to imagine what Emma and Killian's bedroom would look like, and we came up with something like this. So we've got a big bed. One side is super tidy for Killian with a bunch of books, and once again, some ship and like captain trinkets. Of course, there's the big sea chest that's talked about on the show, and then the other side of the bed is kind of messy. There's socks everywhere, but then there's Emma's engagement ring right there. We've got this big wardrobe and just another antique bureau. And then we also decided to add on Hope's room. We've got the chair in the back for bedtime stories. We've got a couple of toys, some stickers on the wall, this magical little bedside table because, again, Hope could definitely have some magic. And yeah, this turned out kind of cute and we were really happy with this. And even though we had no reference, it was kind of fun to get inside the story and imagine what it could possibly look like. And last but not least, let's also look at the basement. Now, the basement is a very different look, I will say. This is basically modeled after Emma's basement when she is the dark one. So, you know, there's a bunch of rocks going on. She does have this like research table in the back, a couple of books and maps and potions all around. And then we can also see Excalibur there in the back. It's kind of a perspective thing. We're just gonna imagine it is stuck inside that little rock and she's reading up on how to get it out. So yeah, this is where Emma pretty much spends way too much time in season 5. All right, let's go back outside. And right next to our house, we have Henry's house. Now, he would probably live with either Regina or Emma, but of course he has to have his own house in Animal Crossing. So we decided to model it after Henry's playground castle in the first season and make it this kind of log cabin. Let's also take a look at the interiors. For this one, we decided to recreate Henry's room over at Regina's. We've got that striped wallpaper going, and it seems as though Henry has got a lot of little like posters and stickers and cards on the wall, so we tried to kind of put as many of those around as we could. Obviously, we have his bed in the center there, and he seems to have this big bookshelf on the side. In the show, the entrance would kind of be over here by the window, but for perspective purposes, we decided to do it this way around. As a kid, and therefore a student, he obviously needs his own study desk, which is to the front right with the laptop, books, and we also put some headphones down because he does quite like to listen to music. And then on the left-hand side, it seems as though Henry has this vanity with the yellow lamps. So we also made sure to put that down. And then as a little hidden reference, we also placed another open book over here behind the games, as though that is kind of the storybook that he likes to hide from Regina. All right, time to go back outside. From Henry's house, we'll now head down the street, past all these cars, and that'll bring us to Storybrooke Harbor. Also a super different and fun build, actually. It seems just like a typical harbor over here. We've got a couple of fish items, boxes, storage sheds, and then this building kind of in the background is supposed to look like this Storybrooke cannery that we saw on a picture. We've got a couple of those sheds in the background, and then we, for example, use those fire hydrants for basically, you can tie your boat there. I don't know, there's probably a word for that. I have no idea. And then let's make our way to the main reason for creating a harbor at all, which was, of course, the Jolly Roger. This is where Lopez, aka Killian Jones, lives, and we tried to basically recreate his pirate ship. At the front right here, we put a white duck because it looks kind of like a swan, because, you know, Emma Swan guides him or whatever. We've got a bunch of very typical pirate things. We've got barrels, we've got gold, we've got books and treasure maps and cannons and flags. We also once again have this shell, and then we also have the engagement ring once again as a little reference to Captain Swan. Let's also take a look at the inside of this ship. Now this one here is supposed to look like the captain quarters in the show. They actually do look quite elegant, so we tried to recreate that. We put those windows in the back there and then lined it with a bunch of different shelves and drawers and such. And because we're pretty sure that Killian loves to read, we've also got a couple of books everywhere. Of course, to the left there, we've got the actual bed, and then in the middle of the captain quarters, there's also this big table. So we also tried to recreate that. Apart from that, there is a study table to the front, and once again, we tried to include a couple of references. There is Killian's pirate chest, of course, all the different books all around. We've got another treasure map on the table as well as another fish dish. And then we also included that shell in the back there and some bottles that are supposed to represent rum, as well as the telescope by the window. And if you listen closely, you can actually also hear the waves crashing. With that, let's go back outside. And then let's explore the pier a little bit more. So once again, we've included a couple of like fish items, some algae, some, fishing rods, and then also put down a couple of boats with that water code to hopefully indicate that they're actually in the water. And from here, we can hop on over to a completely different part yet again, which is Neverland. Season 3 was probably one of the best seasons, and Peter Pan was one of the best villains, so we kind of needed to include it. It's quite tropical in the way that, the trees are coconut trees and bamboo trees, and just all the greenery and all the bugs that it has, but we purposefully did not include any like colorful flowers because it's not really supposed to be a happy place, is it? Once again, you can see a lot of glowing moss, aka there's a lot of magic going on in Neverland. Actually, we might not even want to know how much there is. And we also use this to kind of make a rock garden. So most of our rocks are actually in this one place over here with a bunch of other rock items surrounding it. It was actually quite a fun build also, apart from the spawning of rocks, of course. And then in the back there, we can kind of already see our campsite. But before we go there, let's actually make our way through the trees here, which will bring us to Flip's place, or Peter Pan, of course, which we modeled after basically Wendy's treehouse in the show. Peter Pan doesn't really have his own place to live, so we kind of took that as inspiration and made this as, like, once again, foresty and woodsy looking as possible. Let's also explore the inside of that treehouse. Here are some of the reference pictures that we've got from the show. So on the one hand side, we got that big bed with that curtain partition kind of blocking it off from the rest. And then on the other side, we see the trees in the background with this little railing, and then there's a couple of shelves on the side. And once again, a bunch of things that kind of reminded us of Peter Pan. We've got that treasure map in the background, the pan flute in the front, and then lots and lots of cutesy foresty details. And now let's explore the rest of Neverland. Let's climb back down and make our way back to, I guess, like the official path of Neverland, which will bring us on this path towards the campsite, which basically serves as the Lost Boys camp. Again, we've got a treasure map over here. We've got a couple of tents. We left this just kind of open because we were kind of feeling this like woodsy vibe. There's a little campfire that the boys can kind of hop around and dance around, and the pan flute can also be found right here. And then there's just a couple more things to explore. We've got a bunch more greenery over here, lots of trees, lots of glowing moss. And then through the trees over there, we can also see Skull Rock. It's unfortunately not really a place that you can visit on this island, but we felt like that rockhead statue was the perfect thing to at least indicate that it's there, So we've got Skull Rock also as part of Neverland. And that basically concludes our tour of Storybrooke, its harbor, and Neverland as well. We didn't even have room for all the references that we could have included on this island, but this was an incredibly fun project. We really, really hope that you like this island. Let us know in the comments below if you've seen Once Upon a Time yourself, or maybe if this island made you want to watch it, and let us know what you think of this island. And then thank you all so much for watching today, and I hope that you have an awesome time until I see you in my next video. Bye everyone!